Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, we're going to try to resurrect this old garden bed today, one of our old raised bed gardens that we were actually planning on destroying over the winter, but we just never got to it because of all of the rain that we had. So we're going to try to use it one more year, and we're going to try to plant some onions in here today.
In previous years, we have used this same raised bed for onions, but the weeds just got so aggressive and really overtook this entire garden. So this year we're going to try and use the woven weed fabric that has been so good for us in other situations and see if we can make it work also for onions.
Right, we've never done this before. We've never tried growing onions through this, so this is going to be completely new. We've done a little bit of reading of other people who have had pretty good results with this, so we're hopeful that it's going to produce a nice harvest of onions for us. But it's really a learning experience for us, and we really just are kind of putting our trust out there that this is going to work. Now there are some limitations that we're working with this raised bed because of the condition that it's in. I want to show you those quick so you can kind of understand what we're dealing with. We built these raised beds the very first summer that we lived on our homestead here, so it's been about 4 years now. We built them out of logs that we got back in the woods because at the time, that's about what we could afford, is logs from the woods. We've actually paid to have some topsoil delivered, and that's what we've been using to grow in. That isn't ideal either, but today we're going to amend that with some of our compost that we bought this year. But you can see that these logs are just falling apart. So if I bring the hand tiller up in here and I try to till this, if I get anywhere near these logs, they're just falling apart. They're just crumbling. So what we're going to try to do today is try to grow in just part of the raised bed. Basically, we have a 6-foot wide piece of our woven ground cover, and these raised beds are about 7 feet wide. So we're going to put down the woven ground cover, but I'm not going to till, or we're not going to grow really close to the edges where the logs are because of the condition that they're in. You know, this is what we have to deal with right now. With the way things are going in the world, we just cannot wait to get more food in the ground. If you just wait around so that you can build the perfect raised bed and have the perfect conditions and all of that, you're just not going to get stuff done. So today, we're making the best of the situation that we have, which is to plant this raised bed and another one of our raised beds with onions. We're hoping to get that all done today so we can move on to the next project of growing even more food, because let's face it, these are not normal times, and we can't be acting like things are just normal or going back to normal anytime soon. So we need to get a lot of food growing. We need to feed our family. You guys need to be doing the same thing. We're going to get to work today.
Yesterday, Kevin and I came out here and did a couple passes with the hand tiller in this raised bed garden. We picked out some of the big chunks of weeds and weed root systems. But because these logs are deteriorating so much, they're kind of getting shorter and shorter every year, and the volume of the dirt is really pretty high. So we do need to amend this. We're going to bring over some compost to mix in with this, but we can't add a whole lot because there's just so much soil already. So we're going to bring over 1 tractor load full of compost, spread it out, dig that in before we can move ahead with putting down the ground cover.
try to push it your way and then you rake it further down.
Yeah. Normally we would work in the compost into the garden soil, but we decided this time, because we're only putting a small layer in there, to just use it as a top dressing for this garden. There really isn't a lot of room for extra soil compost, and I'm afraid that if we till it in again, we're actually going to spill quite a bit of it onto the ground outside of the garden. So I think that in this situation, it's just going to be okay for us to use the compost as a top dressing without working it in. The next garden, we'll be able to till in the compost.
All right, the next step is going to be putting down the woven ground cover. We're going to use a 6-foot wide piece. Now, I'll be honest, we're also going to have to use a little scrap on one end because we're at the very end of our only 6-foot roll of ground cover. So it's going to be not the prettiest thing, but we're going to use mostly 6 foot and then one piece of 3 foot at the end. So we're going to get that laid down and then we'll start burning our holes. Maybe secure your end first. I wanted to show you guys the staples that we're using to hold down the fabric. Now we're putting these about every, I'd say 2 to 3 feet. When you buy these, you can get them in cases. They come at either, I think, 500 or 1,000 in a case. And they're nice and shiny and they look great and you're so excited to put them in. But let me tell you a little secret. Old, rusty ones actually work better. They grip into the soil better and they actually grip into the fabric better. So, the reason I'm telling you that is keep your old rusty ones. I think we're on the 3rd year with these. They actually get better as you use them. These are nice, I think they're 8 I think these are 6-inch. Pound them in, and that's it. Holds down nice and strong. We've tried other things in the past. We've tried big rocks, we've tried T-posts laying across to hold things down, and nothing works as good as using the actual staples. A little more work, but there's nothing worse than having everything planted and then this blows off and you got to start all over. So worth a little extra time.
We're going to plant 1 onion every 4 inches and we have 5 rows that we're going to be planting. In this woven weed fabric, we need to burn holes where we're going to plant each of these baby onions or onion sets. So first I'm going to go ahead and mark each spot where we're going to burn a hole with just some spray paint, and then Kevin will go through every 4 inches right where I put those dots, and he'll use our weed torch to burn in a hole. That hole is about 2.5 inches across. We think that will be an okay size for these onions.
Now that Sarah has all of those marked, I'm going to take my weed torch and we're going to go melt a hole through the plastic where each of the onions will go. If you aren't familiar with what a weed torch is, it looks like this and it hooks to a propane tank just like you would use for your gas grill. And basically this is just a torch you can use for burning weeds along fence lines and things. Don't use it up against the house, but use it, you know, for fences and things. It works really great, so you don't have to use chemicals to spray. If you don't have one of these, you can use just a handheld torch to melt your holes as well. This is just nice because it's a little bit faster and you get consistent size with all of the holes. You can pick these up online or you can get them at like Harbor Freight. but they're a good tool to have. All right, so we'll light this up. We need to let it heat up a little bit so the metal gets good and hot, and then we'll be able to start burning our holes. Well, because it's so windy out today, I've decided to switch to my hand torch. The wind was just blowing the flame around so much on the big torch that it was starting to melt kind of in between the holes. So I'm just going to use my hand torch to burn the rest of these. We've got a lot of holes to burn in here. It's about 250 total, so we don't need to waste any time, but we also don't need to mess up. So I think this is going to work out fine. The downside to doing them with the hand torch is that, you know, your holes aren't quite as consistent in size, but it'll still be fine.
Now that some of the holes are burned, I can get started planting while Kevin is burning the rest of the holes. We are going to be doing yellow onions and white onions. I'm starting out with yellow onions. We really like starting with onion sets like these. They're easy and inexpensive. We haven't mastered starting onions from seed yet. One of these years we'll get around to it, but until then, these are super fast and easy and inexpensive. So with an onion set like this, you really plant almost the entire thing in the ground, but you leave just the little tip of the top up out of the ground. Now on the bottom, you can see the area where the roots are gonna grow. So when you plant onion sets, make sure that you are planting this side with the roots down in the ground and the little top face up so it can come straight up. Now like I said, you're just gonna plant these until the tops are just out of the ground. Cover them up just a little bit. That should be just fine. One thing you'll want to do when you're done planting your onion garden is to come out and look at them every day, because chickens and sometimes squirrels or things will come and dig these up, and so all of a sudden you'll see your little onion set bulbs up on the top of the ground, and you'll have to replant them down and either hope that they don't come back and do that again or put up a little fence so they can't do it anymore. I think that with having this woven weed fabric down, our chickens won't really want to come in here and scratch and try to dig them up. And hopefully also any other critters that will do this, hopefully they will be deterred as well.
Well, we got just about 250 onions planted in this garden, which I think is a great start to our onion planting season. We still have probably about 100 more to plant, which we're going to do in another one of our raised beds. But we're excited about trying it with this woven ground cover. Like I said earlier, every year we're learning a little bit more about what we can do with this. We think that this is going to work really great, and it's going to help a lot when it gets to harvest time, to be able to pull those onions up nicely without all of the pressure from the weeds around them.
This bed here really is going to test that weed fabric. It was a mess when we first started. Last year it just completely got overrun with weeds. So hopefully we'll have some really great results.
So we'd love to hear more from you guys. What are you doing differently this year because of some of the concerns that are going on? Are you taking growing your own food more seriously? I know we are, even though we live this lifestyle every day and we're very serious about it. This year, it's like we're just nothing but business. We're just We need to get things done. We need to be working all the time, and we need to get as much in the ground as we can. Are you making some of those changes as well?
And make sure you follow us along through the rest of the summer as these plants and the many more that are going into the ground, as they grow and produce a lot of food. You can see how they do and watch us preserve them.
Right, you'll be able to see if everything we're hoping happens does, or if some of these things maybe aren't going to be as good as we're hoping. We sure are praying every day that things work out the way that we're intending them to here on the homestead.
So you guys, if you're enjoying our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and the best way that you can help us here on the homestead is to share our videos with people you know who would enjoy what we're doing here and who may want to learn how to live a more self-sufficient life. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.